This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, so on today's show, I have Daniel Daines-Hutt. He is the founder of ampmycontent.com and has figured out a consistent way to get gobs and gobs and gobs of traffic to posts and kill it on the leaderboards and make loads of money, and probably has the highest ROI and highest opt-in rates I've ever seen. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed our first conversation, and have read not all of your content probably, but a lot of your content. And you're somebody that I really consider to be an expert in the industry, like I said, in a space that, as you and I know, is full of bullshit and lies and all sorts of things that steer people the wrong way. So it's always refreshing to see somebody that knows what they're talking about and does what they're talking about.
That's a big difference, right?
Yeah. And so I'm super excited for the conversation we're going to have today. But before we dive into the topic here, why don't you catch me up on what you've been doing since you're on the show last and what's new, and then we'll get into it.
Honestly, we have just been link building to, so we did that paid ads article I think we talked about last time.
Mm-hmm.
So we were link building on that to get it to page 1, which it now is. And it was the first result for a little while, but it's a competitive industry that we're in. So I think we've gone from like 0 to 32,000 impressions a month on the article now. So it's getting seen in search. So that's really good, because it's pointless creating content and putting it out if you're not going to do the promotion to get the traffic. So we've just been doing that. And we've also been doing it for a case study. So we wanted to show like how long it would take to get 100 unique linking websites linking to it. Part of that was we tried to get on 30 different podcasts. We ended up doing about 50. We're doing resource page link building. We're doing guest posting and things like this. So we're promoting this article, and at the same time, I'm recording results on the back end for different case studies that we're doing.
Nice.
Yeah, just being a nerd, basically.
Exactly. So how long has it taken so far to get to the 30,000 search impressions a month?
So the thing with SEO is a lot of the time links don't always go live straight away, and then they're not also recognized in Google straight away. So I think we kind of started promoting it around October, November, and then we hit that by kind of January.
Nice.
But we're still building links to it because it's a very large article. The more links we build to it, the more different keywords it ranks for. So now it ranks for like really competitive terms like ad copy and ad design and ad testing and things like this. Whereas before it was only ranking for the one main keyword. So we're getting more and more traffic. So it just makes more sense to keep doubling down on this than anything else, you know?
That's the biggest truth that I think you shared, that, you know, if you really want to rank for something and make an impact and really grow traffic and leads, that spreading wide is not going to help you at all. It actually will really hurt you. And to have those huge, really valuable posts that you just continually promote, that's where it's going to come from. And the other thing this is really simple, but I think the simple things should be pointed out all the time, that you pointed out, is creating those specific call to actions inside of your articles, you know, multiple times through it. You know, that's the biggest thing that I learned, that, you know, can just dramatically increase your opt-in rate. That way, even if you don't have loads of traffic to something yet, you're still going to get value out of the traffic you do have.
That's it. Well, that one article that we're promoting, it has an 83% opt-in rate right now, right? Which is just insane, incredible. And so it makes sense to keep promoting that. It's got there's so many more people who could read it, and there's so many other benefits of it. It's ironic. So it's very meta. The article is about how we run paid traffic to content at a profit, but we're running paid traffic to that article, and it's doing better than the example that's in the article. So it's getting like leads for $1.50 New Zealand, which is like $1 US kind of thing. You know, so you spend, I don't know, $30 a day, you get 30 leads.
Yeah.
You know, so it does pretty well.
That's fantastic. So yeah, definitely encourage you guys to go check out ampmycontent.com, and I'll drop that in the links here for you guys. But check that out and read through everything that he has there, because he dives into into great depth, how this all works. And is that case study on there, or is it inside the paid area?
No, it's on there. I think if you click just a blog section, it'll go straight to it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So what I wanted to dive into, because you were one of the few people that has done the work and put in the sweat and the time in this industry, and not just talking about it, is I wanted to really think through where you see content marketing going and where you see SEO going over the next 3 to 5 years, which is like a millennia on the internet, right? That's a really long time.
Right.
But I wanted to dive into that and just have that conversation, because I think it'd be interesting and follow up to what we first talked about.
I think so. Google is always trying to get people back to the fundamentals, because they have a core system that they use to get ranked for it to work. So basically what they want to happen is they copy an old university paper system. So rankings are literally based off of referrals. So people would used to read papers, and then the more referrals people got, the more relevant they saw the paper as being. And so it like came up in searches and stuff. So that's how their system works. And so they want a good customer experience. So they want good content. And they want you to build links to it, because they want to give the best possible asset to people. Mm-hmm. Now, over time, people have manipulated that because the system hasn't been quite that good. But Google are getting better and better and better at doing this. So everything as they move forward is designed around that. You also have to remember that Google makes the majority of their money by selling advertising space in search engines. So they don't really care. They want people to get the best possible result, but at the same time, they want to sell ad space. So if you notice right now, a lot of the mobile ads and things, they're almost, before they used to stand out and you could tell what an advert was and what was an actual link. And so they are kind of manipulating it themselves, so that adverts almost camouflaged in as normal content.
Yeah.
So I try not to stay too ahead of the curve for this stuff, because a lot of it's just speculation that they're just trying to guess. But from what I'm seeing is there is a definite push to actually be driving traffic to your content, because Google they're changing search, future searches based off search history. So let's say that I have an article on paid content promotion. Mm-hmm. Now, you could search for that and you might find me. But if someone else that you've been to, their website also has an article on it, they're also more likely to reference that person, because they're saying, hey, this is a resource you go to before. This resource is probably good, even if that person doesn't rank number 1 for it. So they're starting to tweak the results. So my search results and your search results will be totally different. Mm-hmm. So you definitely have to, that's why we saw this coming out like a couple of years ago. That's why AMP focuses on different traffic channels. Because if I can get people to our articles, then in the future, when they search for stuff, we're more likely to come up in the rankings for that. Mm-hmm. And vice versa. It means that if there's a big competitor that's out there, they can't dominate the whole space, because I can still use paid traffic to bring them to me. So you do have to have that blend of the two. But other than that, although it doesn't seem like it, Google is still trying to get that best customer experience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry if I nerded out a bit too much there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's good to point out, the origin of how Google works. Like, it's still the same. And I like how you're saying essentially they're layering more intelligence on top of that, but it's not like that's been rooted out by any means.
Now, every iteration is trying to improve that. It's not trying to change the process. It's trying to get back to it. Because like back in the day, I think I said this last time, you could rank number 1 if you had the keyword on your page more than anyone else. So people would put like dog training in white font on a white background down there, like the side of their screen. So that like a 30-word page would rank number 1.
Yeah.
And people figured that out, how Google were measuring these things. And that's basically what happens each time. But the beauty is, it is coming to like a customer first approach now, which means if you are kind of white hat SEO, you want to create good content and have that customer first approach where you're trying to give value in advance and things, it's going to pay off for you because that you're going to be the content that's going to last a long time. You're not suddenly going to get penalties. Like they just did a new update recently. I can't remember the name, and so many websites just dropped in the rankings, and we actually went up, because it's like we're following what they want us to do.
Yeah.
Just been the same thing for years. It's just we didn't always want to do it because it seemed like a bit more effort,
Yeah. No, that's definitely the point, and that's what I always tell people is if you want to rank, then write something useful to their end customer. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, and don't screw it up. Like, just keep it simple. Like, make it solve the problem that they're looking to solve, right?
I understand as well because we've been in this situation. Like a lot of people, it can be very early business or they're dictated by whatever sale comes through the door that day. And it could be a good day or a bad day, depending on it. They don't have any kind of flywheel in place. And so when they finally get 5 minutes to write content, it's just like, what's the topic? What am I going to do? And when they chuck something out there and chances are it doesn't resonate and there's no goal, there's no plan of how it's going to connect with your audience to take them to that thing. So I understand, like a lot of people just like they'll throw something together with no idea of promoting it or anything like that. They've got 5 minutes. They feel guilty. They haven't created any content. So they create something. It's like, we've all been there. But if you can take triple the amount of time and actually create an asset, because that's what it is. It suddenly becomes something that, if I was to die tomorrow, our product would still sell, our traffic would still come in, and, our Stripe account would go up. I don't know if I should get Freya access to it, actually, thinking about it in case something did happen, but that's what would happen. Like you've got a self-sustaining business there that we could, so I was doing outreach yesterday. Oh man, I like to go crazy deep with things. So a really easy way to get a backlink is on a resource page. So if someone says like, here's the best articles about paid ads, and you have an article about that and you tell them, and it's a good article and they check it out, it's a really high chance that they'll put it on there. So I went through and I looked at 10 pages deep for every keyword for my article. I also looked at all my competitors, and I also looked at people who I know are good at backlink profiles. And then I took every resource page link that they've got, and I've got a list of like 15,000 websites that I'm going through and filtering. It still needs to be cleaned up. The good thing is you see certain trends. So like this one website, Elegant Themes, which is like a WordPress site. It links to almost like 80% of the top sites. And it's a DA90 backlink. So if you can get a guest post on those, you're like 10% of the way to ranking as high as these other guys. Anyway, so I'm going through all these links and I'm looking at them, and there's this one guy, and I'm looking, and he hasn't done a podcast episode in 4 years, and he's not released a blog post in 3 years. And yet he's getting traffic because that's how I found him. And he's got products that sell. So it's the exact same thing. If you've got an asset like that, you don't have to be there. It can create traffic, it can create sales, it can rank in Google and things. That's the way to look at your content. Like not something that you just throw out like a social media post. It's something that is going to be there. So if you take the time on it, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Just get it published though.
That's right. Yeah, I think one of the things I learned a lot about this year, and I'm still learning, is like the more I slow down and plan, the more I take my time.
Right.
A lot better.
Measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, and it's like so counterintuitive to the rat race and the hustle and all the noise that we see that it's a little bit. I think it is a little bit more of a challenge in today's world to condition yourself into that mindset, rather than being constantly frantic about putting something out or doing something. It just you dig yourself a hole pretty fast doing it that way. So
yeah, and everyone kind of goes through it. Like so many small businesses think they need to be creating content daily and churning out and speaking to the audience 3 times, even if they've got nothing to say and things like that. And it's a white noise machine, and they're getting blinkered to it, and we're getting exhausted from doing it. And it's like, if we just stop, they might pay attention when we do say something, and we can not feel guilty sitting at home with family thinking, oh, I've got to come up with like 10 ways that Batman taught me to do XYZ and quickly post it on my Instagram. And I've got to get my hair done quickly because it's like, I've got to look good at the time. So people think that I'm always got my shit together when I don't, you know, because everyone's human. Like literally we were like 3 minutes late for the call today because our power went out at our house. Fix something. Stuff happens. So I'm just like quickly trying to get like the wind and rain out of my hair and things, you know. You're so much better off if you can take that time, and it is hard, you know. You do have to slow down. I'm super tempted to just turn off my phone and not use one. I think it's a big part of it, you know. You kind of get lost up in this whirlwind, and I think the coffee has kicked in. I'm gonna be honest.
Good. So I definitely agree that like we have to slow down and create really valuable pieces of content. And there's two sides to that I'll touch on real quick. One is, in order to create a valuable piece of content, one of two things has to happen. You have to know what you're talking about already, or you have to go out and learn and figure out and know what you're talking about by the time you're done. Instead of, like you said, there's so much misinformation and noise that doesn't help anybody, and just screws everything up and ends up being discarded, you know, in the short term because it wasn't actually well thought out. And people need to be willing to invest the time to become an expert.
You don't have to be the very best. You just have to know more than the person that you're explaining it to. And ideally, you need to have experience as well. So you'll get better at teaching. Like you'll understand the topic better once you teach, but you'll also be so much more confident if you actually take the action. So like guest posting, we don't really do that often. I've done it a few times for some major sites, so I've got experience at it. But just to make myself more confident, I've set myself a task to write 30 guest posts. Because after 30 guest posts for these massive sites, I'm not going to worry about anything after that. Plus it helps with links and stuff. But it's one of those things. So like if you sit down and just do the work, put in your reps, you know, you're going to be so much better off, and you're going to see also what works and what doesn't work. And like, you know, you're going to, if anything happens that goes wrong, you're going to get much better at it and learn to roll with the punches and not actually worry about emailing people and them saying, no, it's fine. You know, well, these 28 said yes. So it's fine, you know?
Exactly.
That kind of experience so helps.
Yeah, no, you definitely, if you really want to continue to progress as a true thought leader, not just that term that's thrown around a lot, then you do have to have experience. You have to have done the work. And I totally agree with that. And there's not enough of that. There's a lot of theory. There's a lot of secondhand research. And then there's people that have done the research and done the work, and they're worth listening to.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is they're normally not the biggest people in the space because they're not the loudest. Like, what did I see the other day? So there was 2 videos. One was a Tim Ferriss interview, I think, with the CEO of Stripe on YouTube. And the other one, this came up in my feed, was with the how the head of Zapier, which is like a, I don't know, $50 million, $500 million a year company, runs an entirely 100% remote team. And those 2 videos only had like 52 watches, like views, you know? And yet both of those companies are worth, one's worth like $1 billion, the other one's worth 500 million. And it's like the actual heads of those companies sitting down to talk. But that kind of stuff isn't as popular as someone stood in front of a sports car and blah, 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 you know? And so you do have to be careful about the kind of the information you consume, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So there's two other areas that we'll touch on a little bit today. One is, how do you see video affecting what you're doing now, and like how that plays in, how it affects it? Will it change dramatically, you know, way down the road? And so we'll cover that. And then I want to talk about how somebody can get started and how to figure out how to dedicate the right amount of time, you know, to promoting content. Because I think that's been, you know, a challenge that always comes to mind for me. So we'll touch on that next. But how is video playing into all this? Because it's obviously an ever-growing space, right?
It's absolutely huge. Like, I think YouTube is the second largest search engine after Google. And people are on there creating the weirdest content because people are becoming conditioned to always be consuming right now. And so like they'll watch, you know what ASMR is? It's like videos of people making noises. So like, and it's weirdly sexual. So I think that they're trying to sell that market, but like clicking their fingers into a microphone for 25 minutes. And they're only doing it to get YouTube ad revenue and stuff like this. So it's weird, but it goes to show that there's a market for it. So people are consuming more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Are they your customer base? Maybe, maybe not. But it just goes to show like the video is growing massively. The main difference is Google can't quite understand what's in video content that much. So it doesn't always recommend stuff. So you do have to be good with your video SEO. And if you are, you can crush it. You can make an absolute huge amount of traffic for very little effort, basically just optimizing it and building a bit of links.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that, not everyone consumes media the same way, and some people prefer certain mediums. So we're recording the podcast right now. Some people will love the video. Some people don't have time. They prefer the audio.
Mm-hmm.
Some people prefer written content. So that's always going to be a factor. What I would suggest if you wanted to cover all bases is you can put video into your content. So let's say you write a blog post and it starts to do well and you create a lot of links to it and traffic. It doesn't hurt to then, if you update it for like a new, because updating content as well is massive. You don't need to write a new post. You're better off updating the post for this year.
Mm-hmm.
You could create a short video and put it in there. So here's a video version of the post if you would prefer rather than watching.
Yeah.
And so like a 3,000 word post becomes a 4-minute video.
Yeah.
You know? And so you could put that in there as well. And it makes sense from a search engine perspective. All I would recommend is pick one or the other, because if you're trying to do too many things, you won't go deep enough in any of them.
Yeah.
So like you can always come back to that later on. And let's be honest, a lot of people make so when it comes to content, a lot of people make micro impressions. As soon as they load the page, how fast the page loads for one, what does it look like? What's the layout? What's the font size? How much white space? All of this other stuff. So some content can do ridiculously well just because it looks good. And when you read it, it might as well just be in, like that filler font that they use to like fill out a web page. It might as well be in that because the content is rubbish.
Yeah.
So appearance is really good. So I would suggest like focusing on content first because that can look good. Whereas to create a professional video setting, like I'm in a soundproofish area with good lighting and things, and it's still not perfect.
Yeah.
So if I was to record a video now and put it on my article, it might drag down the quality a little bit, you know? So if you're not in that position yet, don't worry about it, you know? Just get the written content out there. It is going to be huge going forward, you know? But it's one of those things. There's so many people out there that you could, you can have the craziest niche with like the worst content and still find enough customers. So you're going to survive even if you don't tick every box, something like that. And then what was the next question? It was about
so the next part, thank you, that's good on video, and I agree. I think choose a channel and master it. And I tell people I watch very little video. I'd much rather read. I can read fast. I can pick out what I want. So I don't think it's gonna take over the market, but by any means. It's growing.
Audiobooks blow my mind. They take so long. Like a book I can read in a day is like 26 hours on audio or 42 hours. And I'm just like, it just takes so long. Yeah. And it's so slow. I almost can't process the information. Because
I listen to
one thing.
I listen to everything on 3x if I'm listening to an audiobook because it's way easier for me to comprehend.
Yeah. Because otherwise you're listening to this massive run-on sentence.
Exactly. So the other part is, like we've talked before, I think on the show and off the show too, about how you spend 8 hours a day promoting something.
I literally spend weeks and weeks promoting stuff.
Like you write something once and promote it forever, which I totally agree with. And how and content is your main job. Like that's all you do in a sense, right? I mean, or maybe that's 90% of your job. And so how does somebody start to get some effectiveness and efficiency if they can't dedicate one team member to promoting 8 hours a day, or it's still them starting out? Like, how would you recommend, and say they have to deal with the other part of the business, like whatever else they're doing, right? But how do we solve that?
So the content has to be good, first of all, because otherwise it won't convert. And the more time you spend improving the content, the better off. It's like it's the mass multiplier kind of thing, especially if the content can get subscribers and things like that. Because then even if you've got low traffic now, it's going to convert some of them. And as you start to scale up and grow. So myself and Freya, we watched that film, is it The Martian? With Matt Damon, where they're on Mars, and when he gets stabbed in the leg with a thing and the ship's left, and he's like, we always say fix the spacesuit. So like, what's the most important next task in there? So he had to stop leaking oxygen. Then he had to get into the thing. Then he had to pull the spear out of his leg. Like if you do the things in the wrong order, each one could have finished him off. So I always try to think of that from a business perspective. Going out and promoting content that doesn't convert doesn't make sense. So improve the content first. Make sure that it gets conversions from the right audience. Then you can go out and start promoting. Like link building takes time. And even if you got 100 links today, you might not see the links for like 2 months. And then you might not see a change in traffic for another 2 months. So it's like, it's not going to get you traffic tomorrow, but every month after that is going to be huge. And a lot of people see that and don't do any of the work. One, because their content isn't always that good, and so they don't promote it, or they think they're worried about people turning them down. Or two, they don't see the immediate results. So you don't have to be doing it all the time, but as long as that first thing, that content's converting, boom. Then what you can do is you can actually run a small amount of paid traffic to it. So you can just use a small budget, and as long as you know your business numbers, you know, like what do I need a subscriber cost to be to make sales, how many subscribers I need, and things like that, you can run traffic to that all year round. Brand new people will find it and come into your sphere, and then they'll eventually buy. Some of them will promote the post, some of them will share it, some of them will even link to it because they actually have blogs and stuff like that. So it's a really easy way to get in front of them, but you do need to know those numbers, which are not that hard. Once you've got an ad set up, well, now you can actually start doing all these different promotion methods. We wrote a new article that hasn't been published because it's kind of part of our sales cycle, but I'll share it with you at some point about content distribution. Every different channel that's out there has strengths, but it also has flaws. So SEO is great for links, but you're getting nothing for the longest time. Super binary. Facebook ads are great. It's almost an immediate hockey stick, but if you turn them off, there's no traffic.
Right.
Influencer promotions are great for spikes, but afterwards it kind of dips down again and then spikes. So you'll see like this very gradual straight line. So what you can do once you understand all these channels is just use them together. So we always use influencers right at the start because no one eats at an empty restaurant, right? That's why you put your staff in the windows.
Yeah.
So we get influencers right at the start to start promoting the post and picking up some traction. So we'll get big spikes. So we might see like a huge amount of traffic in the first week that the article is launched. After that, if we did nothing else, we wouldn't get any traffic to it because there's only a couple of links and shares. While these influencers are sharing it, we're doing paid ads. So now it's getting traffic, flywheel like that. Then we're doing outreach and SEO and link building and things, which takes up maybe 80% of the time. Even if you can only afford 1 day a week or half a day a week of that, it will pay off eventually. Like, I get a friend in the salmon fishing space, and he does content and does really well to his Facebook page. And every time he launches, he'll make about $5,000 from an article. But after that, he gets no traffic. But we looked at it, and the keyword research is like 30,000 searches a month for this one article topic. And the person who's ranking number 1 only has 4 backlinks. It's just 4 websites linking to it. I was like, if you just spent a little bit more time promoting it and building links, because it's good stuff as well. Like there's a lot of people who are reading this stuff. Then you would get 6 times the traffic every month forever than you did when you first launched it, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas right now, the trickle of traffic that comes through, it'll take him 22 months just to cover the cost of the hours to write the post,
Yeah.
you know? So it pays off. But if you add these other things in, if you start, using influencers to help get traffic out the gate, if you put on a small paid ad to get traffic in, which you can scale as well to the moon, you can spend like $1,000 a day at some point if you want to, because it's, that it's profitable.
Right.
And then building these links and things. So it's just figuring out what has the biggest impact while you're also doing these long-term things, going out hunting while you're also planting seeds so you don't have to hunt in 6 months, stuff like that,
Yeah, that's good. And so I like what you said, like, even if you just took a half a day a week, like you could use that in somewhere, like that's a realistic investment. And then out of that, say you reach out to 50 people for links, right? And you get, what's your experience and what you get, half of them back or 20% of them, or so obviously it depends on how you reach out and what you're doing.
The better you filter and the better you customize the link,
Mm-hmm.
the higher. So a lot of people will get like a 1%, 2% conversion. So they reach out to 200 people and they get 2 links, which doesn't sound a lot, but when you consider the salmon fishing site at 4, you're already halfway there to like to ranking.
Right.
It depends what space you're in and stuff, but the more time you take, it's not about you, it's about them, how they benefit from it. The more time you take to think about how you can help them, the more likely they are to link to it,
and then
if it makes sense.
Yeah, and then if you do reach out that way, then you're going to get a higher response, which is a good point.
Yeah.
And then those are going to stick for a long, long time. I mean, 80, 90, 95% of them, I bet, will stick for years, right?
Yeah, and it's not only that as well. If you use like a shotgun approach to email 10,000 people, influencers in your space, and 1% links to you, great. I don't know, my math, that's 100 links. But you also just pissed off 9,900 influencers in your space who don't want to work with you.
Right.
And there's only so many people who can promote you and help you grow and things like that. So you're better off just taking the time and doing less. And that is like, you've almost got to be a masochist and understand that some of these things will take time. Like for us to rank #1 for content marketing will take years. Even as good as we are, it will still take years because the competition in our space is so huge. There's I think content marketing, I searched for it the other day, there was 3.2 billion results came up in Google. Content promotion at 1.3. So it's like, there's a lot of people writing about that topic and only like so many of them can rank and things.
Right.
But it's worth it. And if you put in the time and effort, so you need to realize you can't come at it super frantic. I've got to try and write like these 3 posts today and do all these emails and stuff like that. Just slow down. Get the one post doing its job. Email 3 people if that's it, but do good custom emails, and more than likely you'll get 2 out of 3 links then.
Yeah.
Take the time, slow down, actually go through and do the work rather than being in this crazy space. A lot of that comes down to how you approach things as well. So like a lot of us look at goals as like a binary. We either have done it or we haven't done it. And so for link building, let's say you need to rank #1 for something and you need 100 backlinks. That means you never succeed until you hit 100. Whereas you're better off measuring, did I email 10 people today? And that's a success. And as long as you keep doing that, eventually you'll hit 100 links, but you won't beat yourself up every day. And so you can slow down and actually get the work done rather than worrying about the results all the time.
Yeah. That's good. Really, really good advice. I think you're exactly right. I think it's easy to, want to reach the destination, which eventually we all need to get there, right? And if you keep focusing on that and so far away still, then it demotivates you and then you stop moving towards the destination.
That's it. I only know this from making my own mistakes. And also, like I just told you, we have a list of like 15,000 websites that we're filtering through and doing outreach to and things, which is madness to some people. But that'll be done in like the next 2 months, but we might get like 400 to 1,000 backlinks from that, from different websites.
Yeah.
We are going to dominate the space if we can get that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's worth just going through. Did I do 10 today? Do I do 10 tomorrow? And just keep ticking that box, and you'll get there eventually, you know?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's very helpful. I appreciate that, because I think all of us, as we're trying to scale up and grow and learn new skills, it is tempting to try to jump in too aggressively all at once, and then it's a short spurt and nothing happens. Whereas if you just make that little daily change, or you put it into the pattern for every single week, then you can look back in 6 months and be, like you said, the salmon example is perfect. Or even if you're going after something with a lot more links, or the compounding effect is what's most important, right?
It is. You have to treat content marketing like farming. Like you won't see a result right away, but you got to take the time to put in the effort, because eventually it will pay off, compound much more than the effort you put into it.
Yeah.
It's just you have to have faith that if you water it every day, eventually it's going to become this avocado tree, right?
Exactly.
And imagine like the first people who started doing that, you know, for like weeks and weeks and weeks, there's nothing seen. And then it's this small, and eventually it grows into a tree like bigger than them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just got to keep putting in the time. But I know for some people that seems daunting and overwhelming, but also it's kind of freeing, because you can be like, just step back from it and be like, okay, well, as long as I just do this thing today, I can stop. I don't feel bad. I can spend time with kids and not be thinking about work.
Yep.
And then you can just switch off after that. You know, we call it our one next action. A coach taught that to me a few years back. And as long as that daily task is done, anything else is a bonus. Everything else doesn't really matter, you know, and that helps you prioritize what the most important thing is as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, as long as I'm doing that, we're moving forward. Maybe not today, but we will be. And then I can worry about like doing my social media posts or whatever else. But as long as I've done the thing as long as I've watered those seeds, it's all good. Yeah. Coffee has definitely kicked in. I apologize.
No, you're good, man. I think that is just really, really excellent advice across the board in business, not just on the content side, not just, I think you can apply that to any area of your business and see long-term results. And that's what I'm about. There's plenty of noise out there, and plenty of people giving you short-term tactics and selling you something that may or may not work. But if you take the long view and really focus on that in your daily actions, then everything builds the right way eventually, and eventually will come. Like it's not going to be tomorrow. It may not be next month, but you'll start to see the effect of it in a relatively short time. If you do focus on the daily actions, in 3 months, 6 months, a year, you'll see impact from taking that approach.
Well, it's like, if it's all the foundational stuff, right? Like, everything else is like a short-term hack that works just because Facebook tweaked this week or next week, and then it doesn't work. By the time you read about it, it usually doesn't work anyway, because it's already been bled to death.
Yeah.
Whereas if you focus on that, like if you learn human psychology, copywriting, and how to sell, it doesn't matter what platform comes out, you'll be able to sell it. You'll be able to improve the product if you're a product creator, because you'll be able to understand your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So like, always going back to those first principles, those foundational things, it always pays off. It's just we kind of get wrapped up in all the hype and things, and the Lamborghinis and the watches and stuff like that.
Yep.
We're all guilty of it.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us again. I really enjoy what you're putting out there and your approach.
Thanks,
I think more people need to hear about it. So I'm glad we got to have the conversation today. And I put the link in the comments there, and we'll share it in the show notes too. But everybody check out ampmycontent.com, and you can read some of the most thorough and useful, strategic posts I have ever read. So I appreciate what you're putting out there and how you're serving our world here with what you're doing, man. It's good stuff.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate it. Like it does take a lot of effort to create. Yeah, I really enjoy that it helps a lot of people, and that's the biggest thing for me. And I'm always happy to talk to you and come on here and talk to your audience. It's always fun.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, man. And if anybody has any questions, reach out and we will get those answered for everybody. Thanks.
Yep.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.